A wiser feller than myself once said, sometimes you eat the turd sandwich, sometimes the turd sandwich, well, it eats you.
All right. You probably see by the title, listener, we're going to be talking about Megalopolis for this episode.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of thoughts with it, but before we get into like major thoughts and stuff, there's a lot to go over in terms of leading up to us reviewing it and stuff. First thing I do want to say though is before this, I saw a movie a little over a week ago called The Substance.
Okay.
A great body horror movie. At that point, it was the most insane movie I've seen in at least a couple years.
Okay.
The Substance was the most insane movie I've seen in at least the past couple years. After last night, after watching Megalopolis is the most insane movie I've seen in the past couple years. Not
Really?
saying that's a good thing, but it is definitely as insane as The Substance is. I really like The Substance, and it does weird body horror stuff, very crazy and inventive stuff that isn't for everyone. Megalopolis is not a body horror type movie, but it is definitely more insane than The Substance. So I can say that. Megalopolis is the most insane movie I've seen in at least a couple years.
Yeah. I don't know about the past couple years. It's the most insane movie I've seen this year, personally. I gotta be honest. I can pull weirder off my shelf.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
well, anime goes weird.
Yeah,
anime goes weird.
Well, so, and like animation in general.
Yeah.
Like there's like dude, you ever see Bird Boy?
Mm-mm.
It's a Spanish one. That it's dark and weird and that director made another movie called Unicorn Wars that I still gotta see. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. But yeah, like Megalopolis is definitely the craziest movie I've seen this year.
Yeah.
And now, though, also I will say, as far as like weird movies go, this hasn't been a huge year for them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like this year, I think we've been seeing a kind of a resurgence in like blockbuster style movies again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and me personally, like there have been some good blockbuster stuff, like Dune Part 2 and stuff like that. But I'm so tired of that. Give me some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Give me
I can watch explosions at home. Like, give me
exactly.
If I'm gonna get out to the theater, you gotta be doing something strange.
Yeah.
And Megalopolis definitely delivered. For the listener, real quick, I don't know how much me and Brandon may differ on this movie. I personally thoroughly enjoyed it. I like Megalopolis a good bit, even for as weird and wild as it is.
I'll get into it further later. My thoughts overall. I'm not a big fan of this movie, but everything surrounding this movie heightens it for me. Mm-hmm. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So leading into us seeing the movie, I first got to say, if you happened to have listened months ago to one of the episodes, I can't remember, we were talking about this movie. Months. I'm talking maybe April, March, maybe the very beginning of the year. It could have been the end of last year. I don't even know.
Like we've been talking about Megalopolis for a while. Everybody who's been paying attention to movies for like the past year has been talking about it for a while.
Yeah. So we've been talking about it in one of those episodes, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. We had talked about like, okay, we need to go see this together.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go see Megalopolis together. So we did. We showed up. We got all the concession stuff. Went into IMAX.
All the concession stuff. Didn't we both just get a large drink?
We got all of the concession stuff. 2 large drinks left, and that was it. We got all of it. Walked into the IMAX screen, sat down, we caught up because we haven't seen each other in person since some convention stuff, basically.
Yeah.
So we were catching up, talking and stuff, and we're talking like 20, 30 minutes sort of thing. And I overhear chatter in the theater and also look down at my phone. The movie was supposed to start at 7:30 regarding trailers and all that stuff. Supposed to start.
The previews were supposed to start at 7:30.
Yeah, it was now almost 7:50.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 7:50.
It was.
And the lights were still on, screen still off, people just looking around sort of thing. I was like, okay, I guess they don't know in the concessions thing that like, hey, the screen, it's not on. So I was like, I'll go and do it. I'll go and tell the people. As I'm going, like there's a person there who's like already doing it. And as he's finished telling them like, hey, like this auditorium, the screen, it's not playing the movie. As he's doing that, as he turns around, I'm like, oh, thank God, like someone else thought about doing this. Thank you, man. We get to talking and stuff, and we're walking back to the auditorium, and I was talking about how like, yeah, I was joking to my buddy that like the blank screen, it's actually Francis Ford Coppola's vision. That is the movie. Like this is his, how we had talked about the M. Night Shyamalan thing, the trap thing. This is his version of it. Like just a blank screen for 2 hours, and let's see if how many people walk out and how many people stay for 2 hours. And we're just joking about that. And I was like, oh yeah, he thought it was funny, or he pitied, laughed, or whatever. But he didn't know this was Francis Ford Coppola. Which I was surprised. He didn't know it was Francis Ford Coppola, and yet he drove all the way from Panama City to come watch it. Because also at that time the hurricane was coming through, so like he wanted to watch the movie, but he didn't want to possibly put himself at risk or die to watch the movie. Yeah. So he drove all the way to Pensacola, which is like 2.5 hours, something like that. Yeah,
that's a long drive.
Yeah. So he drove 2.5 hours to come see this, mostly to live. He drove that long to live. That's the main reason. But to come see this, and he didn't even know it was Francis Ford Coppola, and I thought that was so interesting.
I feel like it being a Coppola movie, potentially Coppola's last movie, is the draw, like the main draw.
That was the main draw for me. Like, and we'll probably get into it with the review stuff, but like how this movie was, like quality wise, like what we got, as well as like marketing and trailers and stuff like that. If Francis Ford Coppola wasn't attached to it and there wasn't all this background material about it, I probably would have never seen this movie in theater.
Yeah, honestly, same. It might have piqued my interest momentarily, but I probably would have skipped it in the theater.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting that like, oh yeah, so it's just someone that did see something, and yet he didn't catch the Francis Ford Coppola name at the beginning or end, but he was intrigued without the name. So I thought that was interesting. But we come back, some applause happened for that guy, very much deserved. That guy is a hero. And then the trailers kick on, and luckily it kicks on where it would have been. It plays like one trailer and then goes straight to the movie, or straight to. I say the movie, it goes straight to the AMC ads with them. Yeah.
But the only preview we got was for Gladiator 2.
Yeah. There's the Gladiator 2 one, then the Nicole Kidman. And this was Teo's first time seeing the shorter version of it.
Well, seeing the new shorter version, because it had been edited down to a shorter version before. But it was one where it still ended with it feels like magic because here they are. And then as with the AMC, we make movies better.
Yeah. And then Teo got to witness the IMAX. Oh, that's something I forgot. Unless I'm wrong, this is Teo's first IMAX movie.
Yeah, this was my first IMAX movie. I've never, because in the past I've never seen the point to getting like an IMAX screening for anything because the tickets are more expensive, and to me it's like, as long as I'm seeing it on a big screen, it doesn't really matter how big the screen gets, just as long as it's movie theater sized. But honestly, for specifically this movie, I'm glad that we went for IMAX because I think that's the ideal way to watch this one.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you do watch this movie in theater, it has to be seen in IMAX. But yeah, it was one of those things where I don't go watch every movie in the movie theaters in IMAX, but if it's like a big spectacle sort of thing, like I always try to go for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we sit down, movie starts. And before we even talk about the movie, this is just teasing the listener.
Yeah.
This just
we're edging the listener relentlessly.
I'm edging the listener right now with the review. Before I even get to that, what this does factor into my thoughts of the movie and my review of the movie is the background of this. Because at the end of the day, the movie, it's a movie. The thing that's interesting to me is Francis Ford Coppola and what led him to making this, and this being essentially his lifelong vision.
Yeah.
So background material for listeners, as well as Teo. There's actually some stuff I learned somewhat recently that I didn't know.
Yeah, because other than just knowing that this is something he's wanted to make forever, I don't know much outside context for this movie's creation.
Perfect. Because that is most of my notes I have is just background material. So, and it's like very short notes, but I think it's very interesting. I am looking forward to the day where they make a documentary about the making of this movie. I think I will love that a lot more. Anyway, yeah. So Francis Ford Coppola has been trying to make this movie for over 40 years.
Yeah. That's probably the only thing I knew about it.
Yeah. And he first had the idea. This is just like to plant it into your brain and the listener's brain. He first had the idea to make this movie toward the end of filming Apocalypse Now, which was around 1977.
Yeah.
That's when he first had this idea for this movie. Now, he actively started developing it around 1983. Where he was even like talking about the movie with some news outlets and stuff at that time, where in 1983 he said this new project he was working on would confront big questions such as looking at the why and what of existence. That was 41 years ago when he said that.
Jeez.
And when we get into diving into the movie, ultimately I do think he is trying to tackle those questions. We'll get into like the success of that or not. So over the past 41 years, he has maintained that at least. Now, so you have that. The concept appears in 1977. He's actually like starting pre-production stuff in 1983. Then preparations to film came together in 1989, where he was even going to film it in Rome. Back in 1989, he was actually going to film it in Rome.
Oh.
But it had to be put on hold as old Francis, Mr. Coppola, he had to prioritize other movies he had to make to pay off a lot of his debts to Hollywood. Because at that point, yes, this is one of like the greatest filmmakers of all time with stuff like The Godfather, Godfather 2, Apocalypse Now. But in the mid to late 80s, really a lot of the 80s, like I'm not saying it was all of the 80s, but a lot of the 80s, it was a lot of box office bombs or just very diminished returns regarding box office. So he was having to work off some of that Hollywood debt. So the movie doesn't get made in 1989, but it gets slightly reworked over the years to have the focus be set in New York and possibly filmed in the US even. And the project, it gets revived and it begins development. It begins development in 2001.
Okay. That's the year that the anime adaptation of Osamu Tezuka's Metropolis came out. It was 2001.
Well, I'm happy that is your big notable event about 2001.
It was impossible for me to get those words out of my mouth for some reason. But yeah, of an anime film with a very similar title came out that year.
You know what was the second biggest event aside from that movie coming out that year?
Oh yeah, something really big happened in New York in 2001, didn't it?
Yeah.
Dude, I was like 2 weeks away from being 4 years old at that point. So, no, 5.
Yeah. So it got revived, begins development in 2001. Seems like it's going to be great. Then 9/11 happens.
Yeah.
And with events and themes in the film resembling what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it probably got reworked a tiny bit since then. But even in the finished product, we do see a little bit of that.
Yeah.
With some of that having happened and stuff, project got... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, sitting in the theater, I even had the thought, like, that kind of looks like Ground Zero for a lot, for that, like, the satellite impact part of the movie.
I think at least with that, like, tiny review portion with that specific part, I feel like he did it well. He did it taste like, because he didn't show it. He showed like that, and then showed like dust, like starting to scatter in the city, and then go away.
That part was handled pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
Without, like, not basically showing us misery porn of a bunch of people dying.
Yeah. Not showing like...
Sorry, I don't know why that name came to mind.
Well, yeah, not showing like 10 to 15 minutes of like disaster movie sort of stuff. And I don't mean disaster movie in terms of like the parody crappy movie called Disaster Movie. I mean like disaster
2012.
Yeah, 2012, basically, like that. But so it gets abandoned again. Once again, Megalopolis gets abandoned in 2001 due to the themes and events that happen. So it gets abandoned. Movie doesn't get made in 2001. Coppola, fed up with the industry, not long after, he decides that he will self-finance the movie when he makes it. He didn't say initially when he would make it afterwards, but he said a few years after that, I'm going to self-finance this. So the self-finance idea has been around for almost 20 years, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Then in 2019, he announces to everyone, hey, I'm going to make the movie. I'm finally going to be able to make the movie.
It's happening.
And you know what? With it being 2019, 2020 is going to be the year that my dream finally becomes reality.
2020 is going to be the year of Francis Ford Coppola. Mark my words.
2020 is going to be the greatest year ever. Signed, Francis Ford Coppola.
2020 is going to be the year we achieve world peace. Signed, Francis Ford Coppola.
So, then, as we all know, COVID hits early 2020.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Bloodshot hits theaters and Revolution.
Bloodshot hits theaters, and it closes down all theater chains.
Which, for context, also for me and Brandon personally, everybody, Bloodshot is the last movie me and Brandon, not only the last movie me and Brandon saw together in the same place, but also the last movie either of us saw before the pandemic shutdowns.
Yeah. Bloodshot, as meh of a movie as it is, it has a place in both of our minds and our hearts, because it marks a point in history for us.
It does. It really does.
Like, it literally a few days after that movie came out, schools shut down, jobs shut. Like, it was literally a few days after, like 3 or 4 days after that movie.
Yeah, it was within the week.
And I'd say it was actually all Bloodshot's fault. It was the movie, and then COVID followed after.
And and that movie was so disappointing for me too, because It's Bloodshot.
Yeah, you're a big fan. Yeah,
I love Bloodshot. That movie should have been so much better.
yeah.
Anyway, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I just thought it was a fun little fact.
No, yeah. It is what's interesting that, like, the last movie we saw together before Megalopolis is Bloodshot. So, 2020 hits, COVID hits. Turns out 2020 would not be the greatest year, sort of thing.
No, that was not the year of Francis Ford Coppola.
It was not the year of Francis Ford Coppola. He had to rip up that document he signed and everything, saying it was the greatest year and it'd be the year of Francis Ford Coppola. He ripped that up.
He even imprinted his thumbprint in black ink on that thing. He had to burn it.
Yes. So, movie doesn't get made yet again in 2020. Production was delayed. But in 2021, casting and production began. And Francis Ford Coppola that same year in 2021 sold a chunk of his winery to finance the movie.
Yep.
As it would cost a little over $120 million to make. So he self-financed $120 million to make this thing. And so from 2021 to 2023, the movie was made using $120 million of this man's own money. Then he takes the movie to film festivals. Part of the reason being to get picked up by a distributor, hopefully. It gets mixed reception at festivals. He's doing festivals for months. No distributor is talking about it or picking it up. But then, eventually, in June of this year, June was not that long ago.
No,
that was
not.
Yeah. June of this year, Lionsgate picks up the movie. Lionsgate picks up the movie for domestic distribution. But due to the contents of the movie and the mixed reception, Coppola also had to cover most of the marketing cost himself.
That poor man.
This man has been through the ringer of this movie.
And like I don't care how his previous movies have performed. He deserves so much better than that.
Yes. And the reason I mention all of this background material is because that's what I truly like about this movie is just the endurance this man has faced with this movie.
Providing me with all of that context has demonstrated for me that this movie is one of the greatest acts of perseverance on a filmmaker's part that I've ever witnessed in theaters.
Yeah, that's the thing is like whether good or bad, I at the very least admire this movie. I at the very least admire it. Not saying I love the movie or like the movie, but I admire what this man has done his entire life. Francis Ford Coppola is 85 years old. He's 85 years old right now.
This has been nearly half his life trying to get this movie made.
Yes, basically half of his life. Like, actually, it has been like over half his life. If you think about the initial concept coming in 1977.
Oh, yeah. It's been about half his life.
Half of his life, this movie has been a part of him. And he's tried and tried to make this movie.
Yeah, no, like after all that, like I admire this movie. I admire that man, and my enjoyment of this movie might be somewhat ironic, but I still respect it and Coppola and what he did to get this thing out there.
Oh yeah. Like I think at the very least, and I mention all the background stuff in case anyone for some reason clicks on this, because this could be an hour review, it could be 2 hours, who knows. Someone wants to sit and listen to hour, 2 hour review. I wanted to provide that because likely if you're listening to the review and it's this long, you've watched the movie. If you want takes on the movie before you see it, go watch like Jeremy Johns. I'm not bashing Jeremy Johns, but that's like 5-6 minute video. Go watch that. That's to see if it's for you, if you should go watch the movie. If something is 30 minutes or more, that's usually people going deep into discussion about the movie.
Yeah.
Which means spoilers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean I already spoiled something in the movie earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So if you're this far in,
and like slight, I guess, kind of spoiler, like the whole 2001 talking about the 9/11 thing, like that kind of spoils a tiny bit of the movie.
yeah.
An event that happens. It's not like major in the movie, but I just wanted to mention all that because now that I have mentioned all that, there are things I like about the movie, but at the end of the day, I don't know if I could recommend it to anyone, and I don't know if I like the movie.
Oh, I know for certain that, like, I don't think there's a single friend or loved one in my life who would be willing to tolerate this movie the way I did.
Yeah.
But I, like, as you know, I am a connoisseur of weirdness at this point. I seek the weird stuff out. And one of the reasons this movie piqued my interest so much is because I knew it was going to be weird.
Oh yeah. Because we had talked about, like, months ago, whenever we first talked about seeing this movie, we talked about whether good or bad, this will be a notable movie.
Yeah.
In film history.
Yeah.
One, because it's made by, like, one of the biggest filmmakers of all time, one of the greatest filmmakers.
One of the most influential and important filmmakers of all time.
Yeah, it's made by him, as well as the backstory, the background I shared of, like, this true of any of his movies. This is truly the one he's wanted to make the most.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this movie is the most his baby out of any movie he's ever made.
Yeah. As well as, like, this is kind of, like, morbid to think about. This is likely going to be his last movie.
Yeah.
He is 85 years old.
Yeah, he probably doesn't have another one of these in him.
Yeah. As well as, like, if you're going to make your last movie, whether the public likes it or not, you might as well make the thing you've always wanted to make, sort of thing, and then do a mic drop, and then whether people boo you or cheer for you, that's what it is, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the story. That's the background for this movie. Now, getting into review stuff, I'd already talked about.
I've got something positive quick to say about it to start the review off, and it is kind of related to some of the timeline stuff you were mentioning. So I'm actually personally kind of happy that it took as long as it did to even get to the casting phase, because personally, I think the cast is the best thing about the movie. They are perfect.
Oh yeah. I'll say, for me personally, it's not just because this person looks really good and looks really good in the movie, but Aubrey Plaza's character, while Platinum, is like a standout character in the movie.
I leaned over to Brandon in the theater during a certain scene that we probably shouldn't go into too much detail about.
Yeah.
But I leaned over to Brandon and told him, Shia LaBeouf just got to live every single fantasy I've ever had, specifically about Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah. And yes, there are some great eye candy moments with her.
Yes.
But I mean, she does a great job. Like, her character is like it fits in this world, but is, like, very much different from everyone else, sort of thing.
Yeah. She as a character stands out compared to everybody else.
Yeah. And everyone did good. Like, I don't think I did on the way home last night, like, watch a couple people's reviews, and, like, a couple of the ones I saw were, and I guess this might lead into, we're going to be all over with the review people.
Yeah, just like the movie was a little.
Just like the movie, yeah. With the acting thing, I saw with a couple of reviewers talk about, like, John Voight's character, the uncle, how they were like, oh, like, he's just he just seems like a drunk character the whole time. He was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I chose one of his lines from the movie for my quote.
Yeah.
Like, for anyone who's looking at the screen, I'm not actually asking you if you like my boner. Oh
no, it's what his character says in the movie.
Yeah, this is a quote from the movie.
In
the best scene of the movie.
I know the scene, like, a lot of people are probably going to bash the scene. The scene is going to be 50-50. People are either going to bash the scene or they're going to love it. I love it.
That's the best scene of the movie.
It is one of the funniest things I've seen in a while in
And
a
it
movie,
comes
that whole
right
scene.
at like the end.
Yeah. After that, it's like maybe 15 minutes left of the movie. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like 10 to 15 minutes of like epilogue, basically. Because like this scene in question is like a part of the climax. It's not the only like gear turning in the climax, because it would be a little anticlimactic if Adam Driver's character Caesar had nothing to do with what happens at the end of the movie. But oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. I had McDonald's for dinner, and that usually does gaseous things to me. So anyway, but yeah, like John Voight's character is kind of the one who resolves the conflict, or one of the conflicts.
A
So
major one.
A major conflict.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, it's genuinely the best scene in the entire movie.
And
what do you think of this boner I got?
Yeah, basically. So I'm not going to run through the whole plot, but I will say, people, this movie is essentially, without, I mean, I'm not even going into the metaphorical stuff. We'll get to that later. A lot of this is Francis Ford Coppola wanting to tell you something, a message before he dies, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But not even getting into that stuff. The plot is essentially, you have this city and you have a mayor that's pretty much staying in the modern time, but yet you have this visionary who is looking toward the future and wants the city to be much better than what everyone else thinks it can be, sort of thing. And through that, you get a whole bunch of different stuff, kind of some Shakespearean type drama with families and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then it leads to Aubrey Plaza's character and Shia LaBeouf's character kind of messing with Adam Driver's thing / John Voight, because John Voight is the uncle of Adam Driver. It's messing with that stuff, and Adam Driver's trying to revolutionize the series, the city, but other people are trying to prevent that or have their own way with power and things.
Yeah.
Anyway, John Voight's character at some point puts on a ruse and act that he is in debilitating health and that like he is like immobile, basically, and can barely speak, sort of thing. And Aubrey Plaza, earlier in the movie, she married him specifically to climb the ladder, sort of thing.
Yeah,
like a power couple.
And like John Voight's character is a powerful banker, so she was specifically marrying him to get control of the bank, through which Adam Driver's character holds all of his accounts. So it's another way to get control of him too.
Yeah, because she has it out for him because early in the movie they have a relationship and stuff.
Yeah,
but he's pretending to be this senile old man, sort of thing, immobile.
Yeah.
And Aubrey Plaza and Shia LaBeouf, they're having an affair and stuff, and they come into the room. And it's like, oh, he's doesn't seem to be doing so good. And then John Voight pretending to be in this old man state says exactly what Teo said earlier. Is like, what do you think of this boner? And there's like a tent pitched in his blanket. Yeah. In his bed. Yeah. It's like sticking up, and they're like kind of joking about it and stuff. And then John Voight's character takes the blanket off, and it's not a boner. Oh, I should also mention there was, all over the place, just like the movie. Before this, there were some jokes and stuff about John Voight like looking like Robin Hood and wearing like Robin Hood hat and stuff, and that also plays into like him possibly being like a Robin Hood type character, like giving back to the poor, sort of thing.
Because his whole thing is that he wants to be remembered for being generous.
Yeah, exactly. And Francis Ford Coppola wants to hit you over the head with that, with that symbolism. But anyway, he has his Robin Hood hat on at this time. And so he rips the blanket off, and there's no boner under. What he has is a mini bow, a mini bow and arrow.
Yeah, it's like a short bow and arrow.
Yeah, that is what was sticking up. And and he has the arrow ready to go. And I don't remember what he probably gives some sort of one-liner sort of thing. And very slowly, Aubrey Plaza just standing there. Teo pointed this out. I didn't even remember it till thinking about it later. Aubrey Plaza's just standing there, and not running out of the room or anything. She had seconds to react to, oh, it's a bow and arrow. I should probably move or run out of the way. Jon Voight slowly has the bow and arrow and launches the arrow, and it hits her in the chest. She falls
square
down.
In the center of her sternum.
Yeah. She falls down, and Shia LaBeouf is like, "Oh no!" Like it takes a little bit of time to put another arrow in. So instead of like charging his uncle and like it's an old man, like Shia LaBeouf could take him, as well as it's going to take a little bit to put the arrow in. Instead of charging him and like disarming him, Shia LaBeouf starts running out the room, and Jon Voight shoots him in the ass twice.
And the thing is, you never, for all 3 arrows he fires, you never see Jon Voight's character knock the arrows.
Yeah, that's right.
You only see him in the moment he's firing.
Yeah. It was one of the wildest scenes I've seen in a movie. Specifically like a what seems like a fairly straightforward drama. It's not sure, a drama sort of thing. It somewhat came out of nowhere, but I loved it.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, but so that scene aside, I had mentioned the basic plot of the movie, sort of thing.
It's very, as you said, it's very Shakespearean, and like all the characters have these basically like Roman names, like Claudio Crassus, Caesar Catalina, Cicero is the name of the mayor. Francis Cicero is the name of the mayor, and that's Giancarlo Esposito's character. But and it's like I said, it's so perfectly cast. Me and Brandon made a joke in the theater. Brandon specifically is the one who said this, that there was a point in the movie where he said Shia LaBeouf isn't even acting here. He just walked on set and they started rolling.
Some of it just feels like that.
Yeah.
Like, from what I've seen of Shia LaBeouf, the man, like it just seems like this is just his wheelhouse sort of thing.
Yeah, like he was born for the role of Claudio Crassus, the what, third, fifth?
I don't know. I just know he was banging his sisters. That's all I know.
That was just a rumor.
Nah,
he was definitely banging his step grandmother, because that's Aubrey Plaza's character. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, but aside from getting like we'll get to like the overall deepness of this that Coppola hit and missed with. But before getting into that, there's things that I did like with this movie. Not all of this hit, but surprisingly, there's a decent amount of humor in this movie, aside from just the Jon Voight scene. That whole scene is hilarious. I love that scene. Aside from that, there's little humor throughout the movie, which I was kind of surprised. Some of it is intentional, and it is funny. Not all of the jokes hit, but some do. But then there's also some stuff that I don't think he was trying to make a joke, or it was supposed to be funny, and yet us and a lot of people in the theater were laughing.
Yeah, like it is one of those movies where it's like you can tell that some of the humor in it is intentional. Like they were trying to tell a joke, but it's one of those things where it's difficult to tell what is and isn't supposed to be a joke.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, because there's some imagery or some things that are said by people here and there, that the imagery in particular, like I mentioned it last night, there's one you can't even describe most of the imagery stuff because it's just too weird. Basically, go see it. It's somewhat like acid trip type stuff.
Yeah.
There was one thing where Adam Driver and Aubrey Plaza are talking in this room, and it just, something happens with Adam Driver's head, or like it vision wise multiplies kind of, and like it wasn't supposed. That's an instance where I know it wasn't supposed to be funny, but
Yeah.
I was
laughed.
laughing at it because it just looked goofy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason it was funny. It was just like, oh, this just doesn't look great. It looks very goofy.
Since we are doing full spoilers, I'm gonna do my best to try and explain to the audience what that visual is in case they haven't seen the movie but don't care about the spoilers. So the scene that Brandon's talking about, I know exactly what he's talking about. Adam Driver's character, Caesar, had been shot in the head, through the cheek. And they used this, my best description for it is like all-purpose sci-fi material called Megalon, which is the material he's trying to build his Megalopolis on. But they used that to reconstruct his face, but his face hadn't fully healed around the material yet when he went to see Jon Voight's character. And so like in the foyer of Jon Voight's penthouse, Shia LaBeouf and Aubrey Plaza are waiting there for him. And he has a private moment with Aubrey Plaza where I don't remember exactly why he unwrapped his bandages, but he did. And you see the like semi-translucent skull that the material is forming under his bandage. And this like Indian sitar music starts playing.
Yeah.
A weird like glow forms around him, and like a bunch of illusory copies of his head form and spread out like an ashera. And
yeah.
And Aubrey Plaza like drops to her knees and
yeah,
in front of him. And it's like, and every time the camera cuts back to him, you hear the sitar play again.
Yeah.
And like Brandon said, you can tell that moment it doesn't feel like it's intended as a joke, but you can't help but laugh because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. And there are a few instances like that in the movie. But Francis Ford Coppola does have some intentional humor that hits. Again, I don't think all of it hits, but there are some things that do hit pretty well.
Yeah.
But regarding the movie as a whole, are there specific scenes you want to talk about, or do you want to get into the deepness of
there
Coppola?
are some specific scenes, and mostly regarding the humor we found in them.
Okay. Yeah.
So the bit when they're standing on that skyward facing clock and they're just talking, and they're like talking about like building up the city or whatever, and then I can't remember the actress's name, but her character's name is Julia. So Julia starts talking, just starts talking like really poetically, and it's like a bunch of Greek and Roman stuff that she's talking about, and it's hard to like parse what she's saying. You feel like it's somehow related to what the conversation they were already having, but I can't for the life of me discern what it was. And like there's a bit where Adam Driver's character like just kind of turns back to her after she says all that, and I leaned over to Brandon and I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like there's so many moments in that movie that feel like they would have been so improved by someone just stopping what was happening and asking, what the hell are you talking about?
Well, or there's my issue. This sucks for like me writing so much comedy over the past couple years to where like there were so many scenes where I had, and hope like Teo may have saw me here and there just like kind of like shaking a little bit in my seat. Yep. That's because I was like holding laughter because I was imagining like what someone would say or act in the end of that scene or whatever.
I know I did exactly the same thing because I've also spent a great deal of time like writing comedy like over the past couple of years, and like especially improvising comedy with you has helped me like work out this perfect like end of scene timing where like right at the end of the scene I'll just think like it would be really funny if specifically this happened, and I make myself laugh. Like I told Brandon on the way out of the theater last night, because we watched this last night, everybody, we're very fresh on it as of recording, that is. But I told him on the way out of the theater, like there were so many scenes in that movie where I just imagined it abruptly ending with someone just pulling out a gun and shooting the other person in the head.
Yeah.
And it made me laugh. And like, it's one of those things where it's like, that sounds like the stupidest idea in the world, but with the tone of this movie, it feels like it could have fit.
Yeah, like there was like some stuff where they're playing it like very straight, but it's almost like, I'm not saying it's entirely this. Some of it feels like Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun.
Yes.
Where like it feels straightforward, but then like you're waiting for that random joke or punchline or slapstick thing to happen at the very end of that scene.
Nice beaver. Thanks, I just had it stuffed.
Like I can't, and here's the thing. What I will say with this movie is like, because I'm glad Teo had brought up like leaning over to me and like mentioning those type of jokes and stuff. We did that like both back and forth at least every like 10 to 15 minutes in the movie.
Yeah, like it was a running commentary for the entire movie between the two of us, basically.
Yeah. To where I feel like you got to be quiet in the theater. We were quiet in the theater.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's how you like enjoy the movie more. Like whether you like it or don't like it, if you're watching it with someone and you're able to commentate on it, I think it's a lot more enjoyable. Had I seen this by myself, I probably would have just like not really liked this movie. I'm
gonna be honest, I probably would have gotten bored towards the end if I was alone.
Yeah, especially the third act. The third act, it kind of drags in the messaging
up until the boner scene.
Yeah. Once the boner scene happened, I was like, oh my God, you brought me back. Coppola, you did it again. but yeah, like we talked about, you should see this in the theater. I could see this being, and we're going to talk more about the movie, people. This isn't me like trying to close out the conversation. I could see this being a good, like, have a group of friends come to your house and watch it and just comment on it, like commentate, like shooting the shit about it, because it's there's so much stuff like what we did back and forth in the theater where like you can inject your own line or whatever in it, and it heightens it or makes it so much more funny. Or you can just point out funny stuff that's in the movie that wasn't supposed to be funny. I know that sounds bad. I'm sorry, Coppola, but. And I'm not saying it is like a man, the way I was just talking makes it sound like it's a good, bad movie. I'm not saying it is that.
Say, the way that you're talking about it, this is how most people enjoy The Room. And while I agree with everything you're saying, I will tell the listeners now, this is nowhere near as bad as The Room. Like, this is still a movie you can find genuine joy in somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's not it doesn't have to be an ironic watch. It is for me because I personally found it funny, but like, this doesn't have to be like an ironic watch like The Room typically is for people.
Yeah, you can strictly the movie itself find some enjoyment here and there in the movie and stuff, but man, like yeah, and again, I am not saying it's a good, bad movie. I'm not even saying it's a bad movie. I think the criticism I'm seeing everywhere regarding critics, the word to classify this movie, I've seen in almost every review, is messy. It's a messy movie, and I'm seeing it everywhere on a bunch of reviews. I probably agree. And I'm not saying that. Oh, go ahead.
I think a better word for it might be scattered, because messy.
Scattered's a good way. Yeah.
Messy implies that it's entirely disconnected from itself and doesn't properly tie anything together. Whereas scattered sounds a little more collected than that.
That's true. Yeah. I think a good way to describe it would be scattered. But just like this review, if you watch this movie, your brain is going to be scattered.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. You're going to be thinking, dude, if you like properly engage with this movie, you're going to be having so many thoughts in your brain.
Yeah.
You're going to have more thoughts than you've ever had, that you ever thought your brain could have about like one thing at a time.
And also, I will say, we'll get to the deepness in a second. This is also a little edging towards the deepness sort of thing.
Yeah.
Coppola is trying to be deep with a lot of this. And again, I'm not trying to transition to this. There's stuff I want to touch on before we get to this.
Yeah,
there's a lot of deep stuff he's trying to talk about here, and some of it hits and some of it doesn't, or it's vague, almost nothingness, but we'll get into that later. Some of it hits, some of it doesn't. I'm not going to say it's a groundbreaking, amazing, thought-provoking movie. I'm not going to say that, but
because the thing is, Coppola's been trying to make this movie for so long that most of what he wanted to say with it has been said by someone else by now.
Yeah, 100%. Which going back to us commentating on the movie in the theater, some of the stuff we would say here and there, it wasn't a lot, but a couple times we would say, like, at least I said it at least once or twice. I said, like, oh my gosh, like, what is going on in Francis's head right now?
Yeah.
Like, some of the scenes are just like, what?
There was a bit where Brandon just leaned over to me. I think it was during the circus scene where Brandon just leaned over to me and was like, I think Francis Ford Coppola is senile.
There's just and I here's the thing with the circus scene. I understand, like it's representing the chaos spin of Adam Driver's character regarding like the fake news that is going to happen, as well as the many downward spiral of Adam Driver like taking drugs and stuff like this, and he is kind of on this trip sort of thing. Even with all that, I was still thinking, what is this at the time of filming? What is this 83-year-old man doing? But no, it's no time soon. But I want to revisit this in the future, this movie.
Definitely.
And I, not by myself. I'm never going to watch this again by myself. I got to be with people.
No, yeah, I do think it would be a dull experience to watch alone. Like, this is the movie that you need people to bounce off of so you can basically joke around with it.
Yes. Whether that's Coppola's intention or not, art has its own life after the creator puts it out there, and that could be one of the forms of this thing living on, is people getting together and
honestly
talking about it.
Whoever has, like, the people who have made movies like that, who has ever done so with the intention of making the movie like that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
No one ever intends to make a movie that you can only watch with other people around because it's easier to make fun of that way.
Yeah, and that sounds very mean, but I mean, it's just a fascinating movie. The background behind it, as well as what we get at the end. I'll say this: I don't think I was disappointed with this movie by the end of it, or regarding like as a whole, because I didn't know what to expect with this movie, whether it would be a bad movie or a great movie. 4 months ago or 5 months ago, whenever we had talked about it, I said it could be bad, it could be good. One thing I know for certain, though, is like it is definitely a part of film history and will live on. I don't know how the box office will do. I got a feeling it's not going to do too hot.
Probably
but
not.
This movie is definitely going to live on. We're going to hear about YouTubers sitting down. Like, I don't know if you've seen the channel Pretty Much It before on YouTube.
I have.
They're a couple, like, it's this one guy, Eric, and then like a friend or two of his, and they usually sit down and watch a movie and like commentate on it.
Yeah, I think
good or bad.
A couple of their videos.
If Eric, let's say 20 years from now, Eric's going to be like 60 years old. If he is still, for some reason, still making Pretty Much It videos, there will definitely be one on Megalopolis. Heck, there's probably going to be one on Megalopolis in the next year or two. I'm looking forward to that.
I have one more scene that we made a joke about in the theater that I want to talk about before we move into like talking about Coppola's thought process and vision.
Yeah.
So that bit when they're driving in the rain, and like the topic of time comes up, and Lawrence Fishburne's character, who was like the personal assistant / chauffeur to Adam Driver's character, starts going on about like the different kinds of time. It's like, lunchtime, dinner time, morning time, and nighttime, and then time to do this, time to do that, and like just kind of goes on like that for like a little bit. It's like, okay, this is a fun little, I guess, bit that he's doing, and it cuts to a couple other characters who are also driving in the rain down the same road, like kind of following him. And then like it spends minutes with those other characters, right? It doesn't get back to Adam Driver and Lawrence Fishburne quickly. But when it does, Lawrence Fishburne's character is still listing like different kinds of time. It's like I just leaned over to Brandon and I was like, "Are you still going on about this?" Like,
yes, and that wasn't even like Lawrence Fishburne's character. That's just Lawrence Fishburne just going down the spiel that's on his mind, sort of thing.
That's another one of those. Oh, he just wandered on the set and they started rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, another instance you had mentioned was of that specifically, someone wandering onto set and
the Elvis guy.
Rolling. The Elvis guy. That whole scene, I get what they were doing with it, but it's just so goofy and funny.
It's like that guy wasn't even cast. He's not even an extra. He just wandered onto set and they started filming him.
Yeah, they were
impersonator.
They were in, because the movie was filmed in Georgia, so I'm assuming maybe they were in Atlanta or something.
Well, they used a lot of New York landmarks in it.
They did, but in the credits thing, I was seeing nothing but the made in Georgia stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they probably filmed some stuff in New York. I think most of it was filmed in Georgia.
Yeah.
And I don't even entirely know like the skyscrapers and stuff. That was probably filmed in New York and stuff. But anything that looked like green screen was almost definitely probably Georgia or something. That is so random. It's just an alleyway, and you have Elvis. What was he playing the guitar?
He was holding like an American flag.
That's what it was. Was he singing?
Yeah, like he was singing like "America the Beautiful," I think.
That's what it was. Yeah,
or one of those national anthems we have.
Yeah, we have plenty. Yeah, we got a bunch of unofficial ones for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh my gosh. Before we get into the deepness, I'm going through all the random stuff of the movie in my head. I'm trying to pick because all of it like isn't notable, but is also notable. And I'm just trying to think. If only I had the time to. I need more time to think.
If
time
only
is crucial.
We had the time to think.
Yes.
The time to properly express the arcane inner workings of our soul, the internal self which dwells beyond the shadow of our own thoughts and sinks into the unknown, out of sight and out of thought itself. Time to consider the unconsiderable, that which is beyond perception and yet somehow within reach. I don't know how much longer I can.
Oh, I was just shot in the face by a little kid.
I wasn't queuing you up or anything. I was.
No.
I was just commenting on the fact that I really don't know how much longer I can improvise something that sounds profound and absolutely is not.
Yeah. and I think that is a perfect segue, since I can't think of anything, to go into the deepness of this movie. Coppola is definitely trying to tell us some stuff, and some of it definitely lands, some of it not so much. Yeah. There is a story. We talked about some of the narrative elements. There's a lot more narrative elements. If you really care, go see the movies.
Yeah, like this movie's got way too many moving parts for us to talk about the whole thing in a single podcast.
Yeah. there is a narrative, there is a story here, but it is very much Francis Ford Coppola. Like, he has something to say, so he's just crafting this story, but he's hiding all. I'd say hiding. He's not really hiding. It's in your face. He has something to say. He didn't want to sit down and do a podcast. He wanted to he wanted to spend $120 million to tell you what he has to say. He didn't want to go on Joe Rogan. He had to,
Joe Rogan would have just talked about weed the whole time anyway.
Yeah.
And doing DMT. It's like, hey, Francis Ford Coppola, have you tried DMT? Here's what you do. You put it in a turkey baster and you shoot it up your butt.
Well, I feel like Joe Rogan might love this movie. So maybe we'll see Francis Ford Coppola on Joe Rogan in the next year or two.
Yeah.
Getting into the deepness. So there is a story there, but at the end of the day, Francis Ford Coppola is trying to get a message across with what little time he has left on this.
Time?
We keep mentioning time because it's mentioned every freaking second of this movie. Because, yes, it is a thing that these characters are focused on and stuff like that, especially Adam Driver. But it's very clear that this is Francis Ford Coppola. Like him saying, like, I have such little time as a visionary, as a creative, much like Adam Driver. I have such little time to embark the things for the future.
I wish
such
I
little
could,
time.
I wish I could stop time so that I could admire the world around me for even a fraction of a second longer.
Yes. And going back to narrative real quick, any of the time stop stuff you saw in the movie, listener, me and Teo talked about a little bit.
We're
last
pretty
night.
sure
I'm
it's
almost
entirely metaphorical.
I'm almost certain all of the time stop stuff is metaphorical.
I don't because it never factors into the actual like workings of the plot.
Yeah.
Other than as a connecting point between Julia and Caesar. Other than that, it's just a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because for me, I wasn't sure, so I asked Brandon on the way out of the theater if he thought it was literal or not. And yeah, we're pretty sure it's a metaphor. I do like to imagine though that maybe it is literal, and at the very end of the movie when Julia does the time stop thing, and everyone but the baby stops.
Yeah,
I like to imagine she accidentally stopped herself because she couldn't control it, and so the baby's just locked in this timeless void for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, it's basically that one episode of Teen Titans where it's Raven's birthday and all of the world, or at least the city, is frozen in time, but it's just Raven that's not, as well as Slade. But.
Oh yeah, of course. Because I was thinking the final episode of pre-Hulu Futurama, where Fry and Leela were trapped between time for like decades.
Oh
and basically like lived a whole life together. Yeah.
Coppola, and I understand it. Me and Teo talked about it some last night. Of like, there's other deep things Coppola is trying to get into aside from time, but time is a major thing he is hitting on because he's aging. I mean, he's 85 years old right now. Like he is on borrowed time. So it's one of those things where I kind of feel it now. I definitely do, but I'm almost certain as you get older and older, you definitely feel it of like, oh, like there's so little time. There's still so much I have to do. There's so much I still have to do for my family, whether it's children or siblings or whatever it may be. There's still so much I have to do, and I have such little time to do it, sort of thing. I have to shape the world, shape their world the best I can for their future. To look beyond me.
Yes.
To look at what will be a great future for them.
Yes, because that's another core thing of like the antagonists of the film too, is that For Claudio, Shia LaBeouf's character, he's not looking any further past his own benefit. He's entirely dedicated to, and I would say the three principal antagonists of the film are Claudio, Cicero, and Wow. But the thing is, Wow and Cicero are the two who like stuck to their guns as essentially villains and thus got a comeuppance. Whereas Cicero was the sympathetic one who could be changed and convinced. And so he gets a redemption. He gets to move into the future with Caesar. And so it's because like there are like, you know, deep narrative and thematic elements if you know what to look for, basically. You know what I mean? As a story, this movie is really solidly structured. It's just a lot of the filmmaking aspects that go into it that make it truly bizarre. But like the thing, because like Claudio is only seeking his own benefit. He's selfish and greedy, as is Wow, but Wow is also doing it as a way to like try and get control over Caesar. Like there's someone she wants as well as something. And then Cicero, he is thinking of his own family, but he's mostly just thinking of his own family, and he like the way things are now benefits them, and that's why he's trapped in the present. And so you have Caesar, the visionary, who looks to the future, who looks to generations beyond his own, and wants to build a utopia that will benefit everyone forever, and isn't thinking solely of himself and how he stands to benefit now. And because Cicero is, again, sympathetic and has a sympathetic motivation that like his family, his way of life is what he cares most about, he can be swayed and he can be persuaded to believe that looking to the future is what's best for his family.
And I feel like regarding like the putting Francis Ford Coppola's message or putting himself into the movie, I feel like it's definitely, yes, it's clear that Adam Driver's character is Francis's thought of that, like Ford Coppola's thought of that. But I also feel like both Cicero and Adam Driver's character are both Francis Ford Coppola at some degree, or at least at like some point in life. I'm sure he was Cicero, because the big thing that ties that is he named the freaking character Francis. Like very, very on the nose there. But you can feel that, like, yes, there is a narrative here, there's a story, but this has been a battle within Francis Ford Coppola's mind for years. Of maintaining what I have for my family or for whatever it may be, maintaining that in the present and just focusing on the present. But then as he gets older, or it could have been reverse. It could have been how the age gap is between Cicero and Adam Driver's character. Maybe when Francis Ford Coppola was younger, he had the thought of being this visionary, because that makes sense regarding his early movies when he's in his 30s and 40s sort of thing. Being this visionary, like impacting, trying to help shape and change the future for the better. But then maybe as he got older, got a family sort of stuff, he was more focused on the present and maintaining the present. But then as he's gotten even older, he looks back at his younger self and realizes that vision that the younger self had and is willing to take that leap. My God, Francis Ford Coppola, that is genius of you. I'm still not going to say I love this movie, but that is clever of you to do.
Yeah, it's the best, I think, genuine compliment I can give this movie is that it is coherent technically. Like, it is a movie that can be followed. It's not nonsensical. It's not impossible to understand what's happening. In fact, if you're paying attention, it's a remarkably easy movie to follow.
And there's some things that are like, some of that stuff is detrimental because some of it is hitting you over the head.
Yes.
Like
Like when we were
one of
making the jokes about like when the statue of justice collapses, and then Julia straight up like says like surrounded by injustice, and it's like, thank you, Francis.
All you needed, Francis. I know you're trying to spell it out for the dummies, but I can assure you most of the audience would have understood that understand metaphor and stuff.
Yeah.
All you needed was to just show Lady Justice collapsing and falling to her knees, sort of thing. That's all you needed to show. You didn't need Julia saying exactly that afterwards, like what it means. You didn't have to do that. And there's some instances in this movie where it is very much like that, where he's like hitting you over the head of like, this is what it means.
Yeah. Like the bit when Adam Driver is lamenting that he can't stop time anymore, and Julia comes to him and she's like, well, you know, you said that any artist can stop time, and then she goes over listing literally every type of artist she can think of and how they stop time.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we get it.
Yeah, like I understood, like within 15 minutes of this movie, you're not just talking about like Adam Driver. You're talking about you as a film creator. You're talking about creatives as a whole. Understood that within the first 15 minutes. But then, yeah, he has to spell it out specifically. Yeah, because the main character he's a part of the, what's it called? The design development authority. Design authority. Like you already have it there. You don't have Julia give us this dialogue.
Yeah, he's like the chairman of the design authority, I think is what his position is officially called.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I know other people give the driving it into you dialogue. I know there's other people that do it, but we just listed
Adam
two.
Driving it into you.
Yeah. We just listed two where it was Julia's character.
Yeah.
It's like, is Julia's character, is she just the one that has to spell it out to the audience?
No. More than Julia does it.
Yeah. But
I can't remember who else basically speaks directly to the audience like that, but I feel like she's not the only one who did it.
I don't remember all, because there is a lot of speeches and monologues, and sometimes like Shakespearean sort of speeches and monologues.
Oh yeah, like Adam Driver's character Caesar, his first piece of dialogue that isn't him shouting "time stop," is quoting Hamlet.
Yeah, like there's a lot of that which is good, can be a turnoff for some. Yeah, there are some stuff where it is like, I mean, like the movie as a whole. The movie as a whole is directly talking to you, the viewer, because it is ultimately Coppola having this message to say towards the end of his life. But and I don't remember exactly what he said, but whenever Adam Driver was supposed to be talking to someone in the theater, we didn't have that opportunity though. That was very clearly supposed to be, because I remember a little bit about that, but it very much was talking about
when the question was like a very, I remember it being like very pointed and specific about like events in the movie. I think it was after the satellite impact.
It was right, because you had the dust happen, and then it cuts to black and then shows him in tiny box at the bottom.
Yeah, and so it was a very pointed question about like I think rebuilding and how it affects the megalopolis and all that, or something like that.
Yeah.
And Adam Driver gives Anne Hathaway's love speech from Interstellar.
It was very, I mean, like pretty much all of this movie is talking to the viewer, but that was like obviously like talking to the viewer sort of thing. Yeah, it was there. I'm sorry, Coppola, I'm not going to remember all the dialogue you had in this movie.
There was something like 2 hours worth of it.
Yeah, that's the movie, and good or bad, that is the movie. It is mostly dialogue. And I already mentioned like the with Cicero and Adam Driver's character, all the stuff, how it pertains to Coppola. Coppola, you did that great. But yeah, there we had talked about the Lady Justice thing hitting you over the head, and then there's just some things that are said that are just so vague that there's not a lot to actually be said. Like some of the speeches Adam Driver or Shia LaBeouf, the villain character, some of the speeches they make are just vague things you hear about making things better. It wasn't this, but it was the equivalent of saying, let's be better,
Yeah.
or let's build a better future. It was the equivalent of that without like, okay, we all understand that. We all we've thought about doing that before coming into this movie, Coppola. Did you want to expound upon that?
The thing is, for Shia LaBeouf's character Claudio, it's kind of, I feel, supposed to be empty because he doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
But for Adam Driver's character, that feels like it's supposed to mean something, and it
doesn't.
But yeah, it's such a vague platitude that it doesn't feel like it actually lands on any conclusions. Like, you want to build this utopia, and he says repeatedly through the movie that having the conversation about bettering the world and thinking about utopia is equivalent to having it. Like, he essentially says that.
Yeah.
At various points in the movie. It's like, is it though?
Yeah.
Is thinking about utopia the equivalent of an existing, enduring utopia?
Having a discussion about anything, like if you're trying to work for something, having a discussion about anything is beneficial because you're getting it out there. You're talking about it. You're talking about, hey, let's do this thing. But then there's only so much of like talking about. It's like eventually action has to come about it. It's the equivalent of, and I'm not saying specifically the Pharisees in biblical times, but it's the equivalent of biblical scholars in biblical times who are talking about all this stuff with scripture, and they're talking about all this stuff with scripture and how to help better their community, better the world for God, that sort of stuff. And they're talking about it with each other, all these head scriptural leaders and stuff. And then they don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Like they when a I'm not saying this happens in the movie, but scripturally, when a poor guy passes by, a homeless man, nothing, they shun away, they turn away, sort of thing. It's where it's just all talk. Where's the action? And I'm not trying to say it's like the biblical stuff, but it goes in that line where it's just nothing but this talk. And it's like there's only so far talk will get you.
Yeah. And like at the end of the movie, you start to see the Megalopolis like coming into existence.
Yeah.
But the thing is though, like leading up to that point, one of the major plot points of the movie is that Caesar is demolishing low-income homes to build the Megalopolis, and like he's just expecting people to trust in what he's building.
Yeah, and which tying back to the Shia LaBeouf character, that's how he gets these people on his side, is because Adam Driver has like wronged them. In what they see in society, they don't see Adam Driver's vision, but like, hey, I'm living now. Stuff sucks right now, man.
Like, look, man, I know you're saying you're going to basically provide free housing for everyone, but you just blew up the house I was paying for right now.
Yeah. Like, things weren't great for me, but now they suck for me, man.
I am homeless, and it is your fault.
Yeah.
You have to trust me. You have to trust in the future that I'm building. Man,
I had so many canned beans stored in my apartment.
And you'll have so many more in your new home once I build it with Megalon, this vague material that I thought was metal at the beginning of the movie, but by the end I'm really not sure.
I haven't ate in 5 days, Adam Driver.
My wife is dead, so I got that going on.
Yeah. Well, at least you got Julia.
Yes, she is, as the kids say, a hot piece of ass. And I have to agree with that. She does have a really nice ass. Have you seen it? Would you like to?
I'm too poor to. I can't go to these fancy parties you're a part of.
No, we'll do it for free.
Yes.
Julia, come over here. This man would like to see your ass.
Look,
she's going to show
I understand. Look, Adam Driver, I understand you're trying to do some great stuff with the world and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, you were born into wealth.
Yes.
Which I'm not trying to bash you for. You were born into wealth.
Yes, I was.
I
was born a great deal wealthier than you, yes.
A great deal.
A great
yes,
deal.
You may have
yes,
you may have some mommy issues and stuff.
Yeah, probably.
You probably do.
Probably. She doesn't treat me great.
But you were afforded with a lot more stuff than I was, man.
It's probably why I seek self-worth and self-value in the arms of so many women.
That's true.
Because I lacked a properly supporting and nurturing mother figure in my life.
And I'm happy you are trying to be kind of different from all the other rich people who do only care about themselves. But man, like I kind of hate you right now.
Yeah,
but you won't hate me in the future.
I've been getting that a lot, but you won't hate me. Did you still want to see my girlfriend's ass, or are we past that part?
Yeah, I guess so. I've got nothing else, so yeah.
All right, Julia, bend over, show him. Look at that. Look at that.
That's pretty nice.
It is. It's very nice. All right, get on out of here.
I can't even get like a Big Mac. In the future, you'll have 10 Big Macs.
You'll have 10 Big Macs. Here's $2. Go get yourself a Big Mac. With $2. Do you have any idea how much Big Macs cost right now?
I have no clue.
I have no idea. I don't eat at McDonald's.
But in the future,
as real Teo,
that $2. In the future, that $2 will buy you 20 Big Macs.
You said you're building a utopia. Why are you still using money in the future?
Look, baby steps, okay?
Look, I could have you killed. All right?
I'm one of the most powerful people in this city, all right? I can have Lawrence Fishburne tie you up and talk to you about time until he doesn't have to kill you. You'll kill yourself. Yeah. Because you're tired of him talking.
I think about doing it every time I climb into the back of the car. Sir, were you talking about me? All right, we have a review to do. We can't keep devolving into character bits. I'm sorry. That's my fault. It's a habit. I like doing funny characters.
Yeah, but no, like there's definitely stuff that Coppola says well, or you can at least like look at and see like, oh, I like that. And for me, thinking about it is strictly like the Cicero and Adam Driver thing and how that is just Coppola's life sort of thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But all this vague stuff, all this vague talk, like I've seen it in so many movies. And it's like what you said, like so many movies have said this stuff better, or not just movies, media in general has said this stuff better in the 40 years that he's wanted to say it.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those things where it sat for too long, and he kind of just he lost his shot at being the first one to break the ground.
Yeah.
Which isn't entirely it's not entirely his fault.
No. I mean, we went over the background, like almost the 40 years, almost all of it isn't his fault. It's just random. It's random things constantly pushing back or preventing him from making this movie.
So do you think that just about sums up our thoughts?
Yes. I think that's a good way to sum it up. It's I'm not going to say good. I'm not going to say bad. I will simply say it is marked in history and will be remembered.
Yeah. It exists, and no one can say that it doesn't.
Yes. And it won't be forgettable.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
That's the plus side with it, with all the background surrounding making it as well as the finished product. This will be remembered, good or bad. But
oof.
Yeah, that is Megalopolis, our hour and 37-minute review of Megalopolis.
Yeah. And just wait until Brandon and I finish writing the script for the XXX version, Megasloptopolis.
Yes. And the whole, before leading up to this movie, like 2 weeks before we went to go see it, for some reason, the entire time in my head, I would laugh every now and then thinking of it's stupid, but just thinking of Megasloptopolis. I was anytime I thought about it, I'd get a little chuckle, and then I'd feel a little bit bad because I'm like, Brandon, you moron. What is wrong with you?
That sounds like a city I want to visit. I want a vacation in Megasloptopolis.
Yes, but
okay. And then when I get there, the first question I'll ask is, what do you think of this boner I got? It's not funny.
that scene alone is the reason to see the movie.
Oh my gosh. Everybody out there, get your boners to Megasloptopolis and tell us what you think.
This is going to sound weird to say. The review is over. I can't recommend it to anyone, but
so I would
say
like to recommend it to everyone.
I can't recommend it to anyone, but I'd like to say please go see it. Not only for the experience, but please help this old man. He spent so much time on this.
He needs a win. He really does.
Whether you like it or not, just help this old man.
I understand he's been an old rich guy for a long time, but at the same time, just help him out. He deserves this before he goes.
This is his last movie, people.
This is definitely his last movie. I can't imagine he's got another one in him.
No.
Yeah, so it's and as I said before, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I've also said repeatedly there's something wrong with me. So I preface every single manga study segment with that statement. So
So either bring a friend or a group of friends with you. Keep it down. Don't disturb others.
Oh yeah, don't be loud in the theater. Don't be an ass.
Yeah. Whisper to each other. You'll have a good time. If you can't do that, take your phone with you and an earbud and just listen to the podcast while you're watching the movie.
Yeah, listen to the podcast that spoils huge parts of it before they would pop up.
Yes. But that's Megalopolis.